Yes.
Yeah.
And now all I do is I click got it. And now you and I are being recorded.
Okay,
Yeah.
And
good.
that way, everybody who comes in will get the same message that you're being recorded and they have to click got it.
All right. And at the end, Kathleen says that I shouldn't close down my part because then it goes through
It processes.
it processes the recording. And that takes a little bit. So I won't end on my end, but when you're
Now,
finished.
Kathleen, are you going to be here for it?
I'm not going to be here. No,
Oh, darn. I was thinking you could smack John's hand if he starts to.
We could write it on.
No, I can be it myself, I think.
Did you see the message from Luke? He's going to join you.
Yeah,
The,
I went on to the IARF group
Good,
message system and posted it, and Luke let me know that he'll be here.
great,
good,
wonderful.
good. And so others may, because it's being posted,
And I know Wayne Arneson from, he lives on the East Coast. He's a UU Buddhist Fellowship
Oh,
member.
yeah, all right.
So he's going to be here as well. I'm hoping, I haven't heard from Cooney. I hope he shows up.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know anything about his class schedule, so of course
Yeah.
it'll be in the midst of the class schedule day for him, but
So which background would you prefer? This one
I like
that's a nice one, yeah.
or this one?
That's so dark,
I think I like the other one better.
Okay.
the bright one.
Yeah.
It's more non-denominational.
That's
Well,
what I
it's
was
a
going to ask. I
and
wondered if
it's
that
a nice
type of thing.
contrast to your body and face also, where the other one is, I think,
It's all dark.
a little more
yeah.
confusing.
Does it make me look like the orange Trump?
No, you always look like Stephen Schwichow. You don't look anything like Trump.
Oh, thank Buddha.
And that's where you go out when the processing is done.
Okay, but it'll actually say processing it.
Yeah,
That
yeah, it
comes across
does.
the screen or something, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
I went ahead and I put the lights on here. It is currently 90 degrees in my bedroom.
Yeah, I don't know, let me look and see what it is in mine, but it's up there. Oh. I kept my curtain closed today in the bedrooms, so it's only 77 in here.
Oh, I'm jealous.
But outside it's plenty hot.
Oh my gosh. As you know, I'm on the top of the hill here.
Yeah,
So I get the sun from the minute it comes up in the morning all the way until it sets. It goes right over, and I'm on the top floor.
you're on
So
the top floors. So you not only get the direct sunlight, but you get the beating down sun in the middle of the day on your roof.
yeah, and it's a black tar roof.
Yeah.
So that
yeah,
just
you got a
soaks
double
up
dose.
yeah. Ah, well, it's still better than the alternative.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Way better. What did you think of the debate last night, or did you watch it?
Oh, I recorded it.
Uh,
I I thought Walls had a slow start,
uh-huh.
and I think he missed a couple chances to simply say you're a liar.
Uh-huh.
And I thought the moderators actually did a good job.
I did too.
And I like the fact that when Vance started doing his blah blah blah, they just cut him off
Mm.
and then told him so. When he scolded them for fact checking him.
Yes, right, yeah.
But I mean, the very end, I think, said everything. When he said that Trump had the peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah. What a nonsense thing.
Yeah, and then when Walz asked him directly, do you believe that Trump lost the 2020 election? And he refused to answer it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Walz just said that was a damning non-answer.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, and I mean, he's really not willing to say that he would do what former vice president under Trump did.
Yeah,
At least was the right thing for him to do, which of course made him enemy number one as far as Trump was concerned.
well, yeah, Walz brought up the whole, there's a reason why Mike Pence is not here on this stage.
Yes.
So I saw the stats this morning that 60% of undecided voters clearly said that Walz won the debate.
Won the debate. Well, that's good.
I mean, Vance is when it comes to debates, Vance is much better.
Hmm.
I mean, he's put it this way, he's slicker,
Yeah, he's sure slicker.
but that doesn't mean he was better. But he is as much a liar as Trump.
Oh, absolutely, man. I think he's probably worse actually than Trump almost. I mean, he's smarter, but he's and there's something about just the way the guy looks.
Yeah,
Scares me just looking at him.
yeah. Well, I think a doornail is smarter than Trump.
That's true.
It's just that I watched The View this morning, or no, last night. Gretchen Whitmer was on last night, and Kimmel asked her, "Do you have anything that you can say positive about Trump?" And she said, "Well, I don't know that it's necessarily positive, but he knows how to read the people's fears
Hmm.
and play on them."
Oh yeah,
She said
absolutely.
he knows how to gauge the crowd. And even though everything he says is nonsense, he says it in such a way that it's rah rah and USA and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So let me see. Okay, we got 5 minutes. I need to minimize this part of my screen because I'm bringing up my talk on the other half of my screen. So let me get that together. Okay. And now, before we start, I'm going to go do a bio break. That's nerdy talk, so I have to go to the bathroom.
Sure. Come look at this, dear, when you can.
What?
Read AI meeting notes is requesting to record this meeting.
Oh, the AI. Yeah, they just then they give suggestions about rewriting things.
Okay, approved.
Sure, sure. Have you got a cup of water, John?
I don't know. Thank you.
So I'm putting my Buddhist drag on here.
Very good. Very good.
All the Japanese ladies used to freak out because they thought I had no respect.
Mhm.
I said, well, you just got to get used to my sense of humor. I try not to take anything too seriously, especially myself.
There's back to.
Thank
And
you.
thank you again, Stephen, for being so understanding and cooperative and
You know, as they say,
whatever else.
it happens.
It sure does, altogether too much. Well, take care. I'm off to Sacramento.
Okay, drive carefully.
Yeah, gonna be hot there. Take care, dear.
Now, what is Read AI Meeting?
It's evidently something that helps Kathleen edit.
Ah, okay.
AI, yeah.
Yeah, it's an AI thing.
Um,
Oh, what it is and don't
something in the chat.
take it on. I doubt they'll even know.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, it says here Luke added it.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah, it says Luke added read.ai meeting notes to the meeting. It may be that there's a
Oh, okay.
closed captioning happening.
Translation or something. Yeah. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
It gave me a chance to approve or disapprove, and I checked with Kathleen and approved.
Yeah, yeah. The more we have being recorded, the better.
Think so, yeah.
So let me do this temporarily.
Okay.
I have to share the screen here. Oh, Lord.
Great.
All I'm doing is moving the hot air around. I got two fans going in here.
Oh,
And I need to have that going so that my computer won't overheat. Okay, folks should start coming in any second now.
that's the idea. That's the idea. Kathleen. Kathleen. I still want you to look at this thing and tell me something about it. And I guess if nobody shows up, we should still go ahead at 5 after or something, don't you? So. Okay, so there's the end and there's stop recording.
Well, that's it. If you don't want to record when they're talking, you
No,
pause.
no, I don't, I know that.
Yeah,
But how do I end and still get this processing thing? Or don't I end? I am really confused about that.
you just don't end until you see some kind of a, either there's, um, once you finish your conversation, um, it's just going to process.
Yeah, there should be a notice that it's finished.
Yes.
Okay,
and it'll
all right.
show the screen, and then you're safe to turn off, right, Stephen?
Yeah. Well, Stephen, I do hope we have people, but I guess at some point we should start even if we don't have people.
Yeah, I'd suggest it's just a couple minutes after one now. Let's wait maybe 5 minutes.
Sure, that's fine.
And
It's about, I have 4 after, I don't know what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and did someone
No, I went,
edit the chat? You just went in there.
I went in
Okay,
there,
Yeah,
yeah.
all right.
But that means it's on, right?
Oh, yeah, it's on.
Okay.
Okay, take
Yeah.
care.
Right.
I've checked to make sure that the link that was in the email you sent me is exactly the same as the one that went on to Facebook and everything else.
Oh, good,
Uh-huh,
good.
all right,
Bye, dear.
bye.
Take care, Kathleen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I think you need to make sure that it's going to tell you if somebody is waiting to come in. I mean, people don't just automatically sign in. There'll be some kind of a notice that people are waiting.
I don't see anything like that. And they have, before they've always just shown up.
Interesting.
Yeah. With Zoom, I never have, I never have let people in or anything.
Maybe I'll quick sign out and then sign back in just to make sure there's.
All right, however you want to do it.
Okay, give me a second. I'm going to sign out, then I'll sign right back in.
Okay. Yeah, you're back.
Okay, so that worked out okay.
Well, I know you hoped there'd be other people, and did
Yeah,
you?
I certainly did. I mean, Wayne said that he would be here.
Yeah, so don't know about that. Sorry.
Bye, hon.
My dear, so there's nobody else except Stephen and us on the recording. But
I mean, I didn't expect anybody from Asia
no,
because it's the middle of the night there.
right, exactly, yeah, exactly.
Okay, we'll wait 2 more minutes.
Fine. Yeah, it's your show, so you get to decide.
Yeah.
Uh, This time for sure.
I'm staying hydrated.
Oh, yeah, we all have to.
And I never sweat. I glisten. But I've done a lot of glistening the past couple of days.
I bet. Yeah, I bet you did.
I mean, usually being up here on the top of the hill, I get the breeze off of the Pacific, and that is just not happening right now.
Oh, yeah, no, that's
The air is coming off the land.
that funny, whatever it is that's making it so hot, holding back the breeze.
I want to get my eye drops here.
Sure.
Well, okay. I guess we just need to get started.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. If anybody shows up, I can take the time to welcome them.
Sure.
So I won't worry. I was about to acknowledge visitors from outside the US, but welcome, John.
Thank you for being
You
here.
look like you're in San Francisco.
I do, but I'm not.
Okay, so let me just go ahead and get started here.
Sure.
I began my Buddhist practice on February 9th of 1970, and I've offered the recitation of the 2nd and 16th chapters of the Lotus Sutra every morning and every evening ever since. This coming February, I will begin the 56th year of my Buddhist practice. So to discuss how I integrate Unitarian Universalism and Buddhism into my daily life, I could be very brief. I could just use the metaphor and refer to the two wings of a bird, hands clasped together, or even my Buddhist practice as the ocean upon the waves of Unitarian Universalism rising and falling based on causes and conditions. However, if folks will indulge me, I will share my spiritual journey, a journey from the West to the East and back again, which actually began in my childhood and the modeling I had at home with my parents and my maternal grandmother. And we all know that the first 6 to 8 years of a child's life help that child become who they are going to be. So my mother was a stay-at-home mom. She was an Eisenhower Republican and a Presbyterian. My father was an iron worker, a Franklin Delano Roosevelt Democrat, and a Roman Catholic. So my father was excommunicated by the Catholic Church for marrying my mother, yet he attended Mass every Sunday. The day before he died of bone cancer at 58 years old, he and my mom were married by a Catholic priest at the hospital. so that he could receive final unction. The words of wisdom that I received as a child from my parents and my grandmother stayed with me and are the basis upon which I am both Buddhist and Unitarian Universalist. My grandmother's words of wisdom to me were always about the golden rule and the fact that I must always know the difference, excuse me, between churchianity and Christianity, between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. My dad's advice was, if you don't vote, you don't get to complain. And I'm using that a lot lately. And also that the greatest sin is hypocrisy. And my mom said, never get down in the gutter to look the other guy in the eye, which was essentially the Buddha's teaching about not returning hate with hate, anger with anger, or insult with insult. And the final piece of advice was that I should never take someone else's word for something, but always find out for myself. All of those are consistent with the teachings of the Buddha. So these kinds of advice are why I believe that Buddhism is simply common sense. So when I was 14, 15 years old, I had come down the stairs late one night because I knew which steps creaked and which didn't. And I heard my parents having a passionate discussion about my brother and I having been raised Protestant rather than Catholic. And that was actually pretty traumatic for me, since my parents always kept discussions about my brother and me privately between themselves, always having a united front when it came to us kids. So before puberty did its thing on my voice, I used to sing solos in our church choir. But my dad wasn't allowed by his church to come and hear me sing. And I wondered how both of my parents were Christians, but their Christianity was a source of division rather than unity in our family. So my parents' conversation led me to go to the school library the next day and start reading the Life magazine book of world religions. The only religion that sounded nice was Buddhism, except for the fact that I would have to shave my heads, wear funny colored robes, and memorize a lot of numbers, the 4 of this, the 8 of that, the 5 of this, the 6 of that. And that just seemed way too complicated for my 15-year-old brain to wrap around. Now let's fast forward to 1968, when I was wrestling with being gay in a world where God hated gay people and was being automatically condemned to hellfire and damnation just for existing. I had read an article in the Philadelphia Evening Bulletin about a weird cult in Santa Monica, California, where people were given an amulet, which I pictured as some kind of a keychain fob, and they chanted weird words to it and believed that their wishes would come true. So I simply passed it off to the fact that it was happening in California, known on the cultured East Coast as the land of fruits and nuts and flakes and quicks. Now we come to 1970, and at being 25, having experienced one life defeat after another, I found myself back in my parents' home, in my old bedroom, completely depressed and having lost all sense of self-respect and hope for the future. My great aunt used to give us her magazines when she finished with them. And in February 1970, she passed on her January magazines, among which was the Life magazine, which issue was dedicated to philosophies for the 70s. And there was an article about a Buddhist sect in New York City which chanted a mantra to a scroll and received benefit from doing so. The people in the photos looked like normal people, no shaved heads, no funny clothes. Since I was adrift and certainly had time on my hands, I called the New York headquarters and found out that there was a discussion meeting happening in Philadelphia that very evening. So I drove the 35 miles from the southwest suburbs to North Philadelphia to check it out. They handed me a book with Chinese characters and English phonetics and sat me up front to try it. I was immediately fascinated since I had wanted to study Chinese, but my alma mater, Penn State University, only offered Russian, not Chinese, so I pursued the study of that language instead. Hello, Kuni. So at that meeting, I thought, wow, here's my chance to study Chinese. I thought the people jumping up to tell how they had gotten things from chanting for it a bit crazy, albeit they were nice and sincere. So when I was asked what I thought, I diplomatically responded that it was very interesting. And that was a diplomatic response. I remember my mom coming home, having been to the hairdressers, and it looked like she had a fright wig. And she said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, that's very interesting." My dad was the one that told her it looks like a fright wig. Anyway, the woman in charge asked me if I would like to try the chanting. And I was about to demur when she said, "Just try it for 100 days without any belief." Then she added, "No one can do it every morning and every night for 100 days without skipping." So that was a challenge to me. And it was something I needed, a challenge. And I was just determined to show her that at least one person in the universe could do it. And the rest, I suppose, is history. I went home, I got a calendar, I counted 100 days on the calendar, and I started doing the practice every morning and every evening. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi, I'm so sorry to be late. I ended up stuck in something, so
Glad you're here.
Not to worry.
Nice to see
John
you.
is recording this, so you'd be able to catch. We had to get started, but you'll be able to catch the beginning.
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, so anyway, I ended up practicing with an organization called Soka Gakkai. It was Nichiren Shoshu Soka Gakkai of America. And I practiced in that organization for 21 years, almost
Wow.
2 years. I wanted to make sure when I started speaking up that I had sufficient practice behind me, and I attained the highest level one could in the study department without reading kanji. But after 21 years, it started to become very cult-like, and I feel lost its way. It became so attached to its anger at the clergy because the clergy had kicked the president of the lay organization out. So when I started speaking out about the lay organization's un-Buddhist behavior, they kicked me out.
Mm.
So I went to the clergy, and they told me gay people were not welcome.
Mm.
So I became adrift, essentially. Although I never stopped my practice, I practiced on my own. And this is where Unitarian Universalism entered my life by way of my then partner, who was a member of the Sacramento Society. And he told me that his minister, Don Bodro, was going to give a sermon the upcoming Sunday about Buddhism. So in my conceit, I decided to go simply because I knew that those Christians always got it wrong about Buddhism. So In fact, Reverend Beaudreau got it right. And I was so impressed, I decided to begin attending because I had no community left, spiritually. What I found among the UUs at that church was a welcoming home as the partner of one of its members. I also found a societal engagement to make the world a better place, which was consistent with my Buddhist practice. In that we create our environment for the better or for ill. It's up to us. So as soon as I started attending the UU Society in Sacramento, the minister left. And over the next few years, they called in interim ministers. And the first for 1 year was a lesbian woman. And then the 2 following years was a gay minister and his spouse. And it amazed me that all of these at that time, for me, blue-haired people, which I'm now blue-haired, they treated the minister's spouse like any other minister's spouse. That just impressed the hell out of me. Well, pardon my French. So finally, when Reverend John Young was called to the pulpit, and since I was still an official friend of the church, he encouraged or challenged me to become a full-fledged member, because then I had the right to vote. So I did. And he even brought the book to my house to sign. So it was at that time that I also encountered the Buddhist lay society, Schwichow. And that was when 2 dear friends of mine that I'd known since 1970 in Philadelphia were kicked out of SGI as well. And they had moved to Sacramento, and they moved next door to a house where they heard the chanting coming from. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And it turns out that it was members of Rishoku Seikai. So my friend Douglas let me know about this, and I went over there and I met the ladies and the one husband. And I got the address of the head minister, who was at the big church in Pacifica, which is about 25 miles south of San Francisco. And I wrote him a letter, which when I look back on it was a whiny venting of my grievances about the way SGI had treated me. And he wrote me back with a reminder. But I need to say something about that when I lived in Houston in the mid-70s, I was severely gay bashed outside a local club by 3 Christian teenagers. And they were doing what their minister had told them that Sunday morning, which that God hated gay people and would not suffer homosexuals to live. So they went out with pipes and bats to do their God's work. So the counsel I was given at that time was to chant for their happiness, which I can assure you was difficult, but I did it. And what happened was I didn't hang on to hurt or anger. I actually began to have sympathy that these kids were being trained to believe in hate and hurting others, and thinking to myself what kind of lives they were building for themselves. So that advice to chant for their happiness was the best I should have gotten. So getting back to Reverend Maruta in Pacifica, his response was really beautiful. A full page reminding me that had I not come in contact with SGI, I would never have known anything about Buddhism. and that all of the benefits and all of the growth and all of the spiritual evolution that I had gone through all those years was thanks to that event of going to that meeting and thinking I was going to learn Chinese. And that impressed me so much that I became an RKK member. So I remember riding in the car with Reverend Young and saying to him, hey, I just ran into a bunch of Buddhists who are like a bunch of Unitarian Universalists. And he laughed and he said, oh, you must meet Risho Kosekai. So from SGI, I learned to use my practice to challenge myself. And I also learned the value of Sangha, of community. So where the Sangha is stronger than the sum of its members. And I remember when I was going through cancer and stuck in my home for 3 weeks with a catheter, that every evening a member of my church, the First UU in San Francisco, was at my door with dinner. And not just for me and my husband. And that showed me that Sangha means as much within Unitarian Universalism as it does within Buddhism. So SGI never really emphasized reading or studying the Lotus Sutra oneself, but rather reading what the organizational leaders had to say about it and reading the writings of the founder, Nichiren. Risho Kosekai, on the other hand, encouraged the reading, reciting, and studying of the Threefold Lotus Sutra, and using the power of the Dharma and the Dharma circle, which is called Hosa, to help us navigate life together. So I now, after 20 years with Nichiren Shu, working to found a temple, we now have our 501c3, and I've just been elected president of the Nichiren Shu Shinganji, or True Vow Temple, here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I've attempted to incorporate the democratic principles of Unitarian Universalism, in that just as Unitarian Universalism, the UUA is an association of independent congregations, the Nichiren Shu in North America is an association of independent temples. So we each are democratic, we elect our leaders, and we even have a say over who's going to be our minister. So I've really incorporated the principles of Unitarian Universalism into the national organization here. And the most important thing that I've gotten from my constant reading and reciting of the Lotus Sutra is highlighted in the 16th chapter, which introduces the concept of the eternal Buddha Dharma. And the concept of the eternal Buddha, or the eternal Dharma, is unique to Mahayana Buddhism. And in the 16th chapter, there are a couple little stanzas I'm going to read here. The first is, if there are living beings in other lands who are reverent and sincere in their faith, then among them as well, I will teach the unexcelled Dharma. And the other one, which is the penultimate 4 verses of the 16th chapter, it says, I always know which living beings practice the way and which do not. And in accord with what they need to be saved, I share various teachings. So for me, the idea from the Lotus Sutra is about the equality of all beings, and the fact that the concept of the Buddha Dharma is not just the property of those of us who take refuge in the Buddha Dharma and Sangha, but that the dharmas of loving compassion, respect for all life, and the interconnectedness and equality of all beings can be found in humanism. It can be found in the three monotheistic religions, in Hinduism, all the world's great philosophies and religions. And the Buddha points out that the road in which these basic concepts, these dharmas are wrapped, is simply skillful means. So for me, someone can say to me, God bless you. And I can appreciate that. I can accept that. You know, my family are very religious. Some are Protestant, some are Catholic. But they all, you know, John once described himself, which I accept, that I'm not a Christian, I'm a Jesusian. And that to me is what really matters, that the Buddha Dharma exists eternally and everywhere. And if somebody needs to say that that's God, that's fine. I'll just try and remember them, the words on the wall of our sanctuary, that the kingdom of God is within. And it's too easy if you think the answer's out there. When you don't get the answer you want, you can place blame out there. Buddhism says it's all inside. So for me, to me, there's no difference when you get down to it between my practice of Buddhism and my participation as Unitarian Universalist. So I tell people either that I'm a Buddhatarian Universalist, or for those who get the pun, I'm a bisexual. You got it. Anyway, thank you for putting up with me rambling on.
No, it was much more than rambling on. And I think you have a very astute audience here. I'm particularly interested that, you know, three different, very serious Buddhist practitioners. I'm more the amateur, if you will, in that regard, I think, although deep, profoundly affected by the teachings. But I think it's a wonderful opportunity to hear from both Wayne and Cooney. I hope that you'll unmic yourselves and speak up if you'd like to ask questions, make comments.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Well, I just would share a little bit of my own very satisfying history encountering Rishokosen Kai and the blessings I've had from some of the relationships I've had. I had a chance to visit Japan at a time when President Niwano was still alive, and with a youth delegation that I was involved with from IARF and IRF. And so I was honored with the chance to be able to meet him, but also to meet young members of Rishokosen Kai in Tokyo and experience some of the ceremonies and services in the large temple in both in Tokyo and in Kyoto. And you know, what I carried away from that experience at the time, I was still really curious about Buddhism and not very clear in my own practice. I was exploring and was eclectic. I was reading books and I was sitting when and where I couldn't, but I hadn't made a commitment to a teacher or to the Soto Zen practice that I have been doing for many years now. But what so impressed me at the time that I first encountered Rishokosen Kai was the Sangha of Rishokosen Kai, as Stephen suggests, the commitment of the members of Rishokosen Kai communities to each other, the ways in which they counted on each other as embodied in the Hosan, I'm pronounced Hosa practice.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the depth of commitment to bringing Buddhist practice into everyday life. And so I and just in recent years, mainly my contact with friends in Risha Kosekai has been through Meadville Lombard Seminary, and the chance to know Hiroshi Niwano and Munehiro Niwano, presidents of the seminary, through connections with Meadville Lombard. I served on the board with Munehiro Niwano at Meadville Lombard, and we would see each other a couple of times a year because of him coming to Chicago for board meetings. So staying in touch that way, and appreciating some of the ways that religious leaders in Risho Kosekai prepare without having an ordained leadership, but having a committed lay leadership that prepares very seriously and deeply to provide leadership in communities of Risho Kosekai, in temples, and was very instructive and inspiring for us on the board of Meadville Lombard Seminary. Because my own Zen practice is, so traditional Japanese, involved in koan practice, direct relationship with the teacher, and a lot of sitting. The other thing that I've learned a lot from Risho Kosekai has been the power and importance of devotional practice, and that dimension of religious practice has been, in a way, a growing edge for me to throw myself into what modest amount of liturgy there is in Zen practice, to learn the chants, to be able to lead worship, and to convene sanghas in Unitarian Universalist churches. I've appreciated what I've learned from Risho Kosekai in those roles. So I wanted to hear more about Stephen's journey, because I've been aware of he's the most prominent person active in our UU Buddhist Fellowship who practices within Risho Kosekai, and I really was interested in hearing more about his story, because I haven't really had a chance to learn it. So that's what I would share immediately about what attracted me, and why I'm so grateful that you were willing to have a second opportunity to present your story today, and time it so that I could attend.
We're really glad that you could. I don't know if you know Kuni Teresa.
Yeah, Wayne,
I don't know.
this is the first time I meet you, right?
Yes, I think so.
Wow.
Uh,
So,
Kuni's on our board, and he's
Of
both
IARF?
of IRF,
Uh-huh.
U.S. chapter board, and he is a professor in Iowa and at a religious school, and he is also an evangelical Lutheran, and so he combines being an evangelical Lutheran and a Rishi Kosekai, and got involved in one of our Zooms and agreed to be on our board, and he's been a real asset to our board, and actually pushed us to get together, which we will, as a board, we've been on Zoom only and together,
Uh-huh.
the East Coast, West Coast kind of thing. So we're going to be in Bethesda toward the end of the month, and have a whole series of meetings to meet with some national groups and so on.
wow.
Uh,
So,
Wonderful.
well, Wayne, where do
I live in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Chicago?
No, I live in Virginia,
Oh, Virginia.
in Charlottesville, where the University of Virginia is located. It's about 2 hours south and west of Washington, D.C. and I'm a retired Unitarian Universalist minister. And so I keep house for my very active wife, who is a Unitarian Universalist minister who continues to work. And right now she's on a period of sabbatical, but I'm very excited by the fact that I think she's going to be asked to be a temporary minister for the All Souls Unitarian Church in New York City, in Manhattan.
Oh, wow.
And of course, that's interesting for me in many ways. But I know that is certainly in New York. There is a Risho Kosekai community, is there not? I
Yes,
think
yes,
so.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
very active. And in the All Souls Church in New York City on in the Upper West Side, they have one of the most active and well-developed Buddhist teaching programs that is led by a staff member who is on our board of UU Buddhist Fellowship. She is herself a Vajrayana practitioner, and her name is Pamela Patton. But she offers many different opportunities for exploration of Buddhist insight and practice within the community of All Souls Church. And the church sponsors and encourages that. So I'm looking forward to spending more time with Pamela, and I won't live up there with my wife. It's very expensive to live in New York. She's going to get a tiny apartment, but I will go up and visit every month, starting in January, and for 6 months through the winter to the spring. It's a nice opportunity for me to explore a little bit more about what's available in New York. My one Zen community that I practiced in was the Zen Mountain Monastery community, which is in the White Plum lineage that comes out of Los Angeles from Mayazumi Roshi's lineage. And they have a Brooklyn temple, and I've been to sessions there and Zazenkais there in the past. So I look forward to a chance to perhaps go and meet some old friends. I stopped going to Zen Mountain Monastery it's probably been 10 years since I've been, and I really couldn't do the drive anymore or keep up with the commitments of being a student there because they very committed to face-to-face practice and doing doksans face-to-face. I'm not sure they still do it that way, but anyway, I moved on to other teachers and continued to practice
Wow.
within that Soto lineage.
Maybe I could interject here. Number one, Wayne, I pegged you for either being a Canadian
Yes, I am.
or from Virginia, the way you said about.
Yeah, no, it's the Canadian in me. That's right. I grew up in Manitoba.
And then you moved to where you can still use it.
Yeah, I do sound a little Virginian sometimes.
So Kuni, Wayne, why don't you explain the infamy of Charlottesville?
Oh, well, Kuni, were you in the United States in 2017?
Yeah, I have been in United States since 2000.
Okay. Well, you may remember shortly after President Trump's election, the following summer after President Trump was elected, there were demonstrations in Charlottesville, Virginia,
Oh,
from
yeah.
the right wing, the alt-right, really
right, that's right.
neo-Nazi groups that marched
Yes.
in our city to protest the fact that the community wanted to take down statues of Confederate generals, Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, that had been in the city parks downtown for many, many years. And so that was the excuse for the protest. But yes, I was there with other clergy trying to stand in a line around that park where the statues were when the Nazi demonstrators came marching in. And
Oh, wow.
so it was a very frightening time. But many people remember Charlottesville not for our many other good qualities, but for that difficult day in August 12th of 2017.
Wayne,
Wow.
one of the wonderful things about Kuni is that he has done extensive research and in-face practice in sort of trying to help, I think, reconcile Japanese and Koreans.
Oh,
And Kuni, perhaps you could tell him a little more about what you've done there, because I think that work's very important. And he gave an address at the recent Congress in Cluj on this work.
Yeah, kind of a my research has been the religion and nationalism, kind of. My academic research is Japanese Buddhism and the Japanese Christian in relation to nationalism, particularly World War II issues. So that's why Japanese Buddhism also made lots of mistake. And Japanese Christians, there are resistance, but majority of Buddhism Christian collaborated with Japanese militarism and imperialism, particularly against China and Korea and other Asian country. So that's why Japan-Korea reconciliation is a very important issue of religion and nationalism. So I try to contact with Korean Buddhist, Korean Christians, Japanese Christian, Japanese Buddhist, to find out repentance, reconciliation, relationship between two countries, and eventually extend to China. But first of all, Japan, Korea is a neighbors. But modern Japan failed to treat Korea an ideal relation, mutual respect. That instead, Japan tried to dominate Korea based on very modern social Darwinism kind of power, That's why how to reconcile between Japan and Korea through Buddhist Christian interreligious dialogue and also transnational dialogue based on the Dharma and Christian teaching and repentance and forgiveness. And particularly young people, Japanese students, Korean students. That's why I was sabbatical 2019 to 20. So I stay Korea for 6 months, visiting Professor Sogan University. The other 6 months I went to Hong Kong. The Hong Kong the protest movement and democratic movement. There are kind of Buddhist Christian students taking a very demonstration. But sometimes Hong Kong Chinese Buddhism, sometimes a little bit, difficult situation because their relation to the continental Chinese Buddhist. But kind of, how to bring reconciliation and repentance in the East Asia and Pacific Rim. That's why Schwichow said, I am also evangelical Lutheran. Lutheran Church is evangelical Lutheran Church is not evangelical, very liberal.
uh-huh.
ELCA. But also I'm a member of the RKK.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's why Buddhist Christian dialogue is my key concern. I greatly respect Unitarian Universalist and to making wonderful relation with Buddhist Christian dialogue. And
Did
that's
any
why,
of your work with Korean Buddhists include Zen practitioners in the Korean
Zen
lineages?
practitioner also, there's a new Buddhist movement like Rishoko Sekai as a new religious movement. New Buddhist
One?
movement. Won Buddhism. Won.
Oh, yes, one. Yeah.
Yeah, Won Buddhist. I have lots of friends.
They
They
joined
actually,
IARF, did they not?
yeah, no, they are not yet.
Not yet.
But they have their own organization, so-called Interfaith Coalition for the global citizen. And I actually, end of the August, Rishoko Sekai and Won Buddhism, and myself, also Buddhist Christian Society in United States, joined together at the United Nations. We had a big conference of the NGO or coalition to United Nations and Interfaith Coalition for Global Citizen get together at the United Nations Church.
Oh.
And I presented a paper, and many Schwichow also some join on Buddhism, and many Buddhist Christian scholar leader get together. We have a wonderful meeting. And I stay Schwichow New York Church.
Oh.
Is Reverend James Lynch, you know? Do you know Reverend James Lynch, of a New York Church director?
I think
RKK?
how long has he been there?
No, just maybe 3 years.
Maybe
He's
not
newly.
then.
Yes,
Yeah.
you know, maybe Mr. Hatakeyama or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He's Reverend James also wonderful and church leader, RKK New York. And he's also professor at Brooklyn College. So he has a lots of interfaith activity in New York
Uh-huh.
City. So he's also wonderful RKK members.
I'm gonna have to look him up.
Yeah, James Lynch.
I have a question for all of you,
Yeah.
Yes.
Stephen too. And I was very struck by Wayne's comment about the sacramental part being sort of the growing edge of his practice. And I think that compared to some of the other ecumenical international organizations, I think historically the IARF tried to be genuinely denominational and therefore kind of emphasize the sacramental part as opposed to just either the social action part or the kind of worldwide viewpoint. And I guess it seems to me that a lot of people now don't perceive that as kind of the growing edge of their own movements. And so it's making it a little harder for the IRF to find its place in the 21st century. And I guess all of us in our different ways have our own spiritual practices that have or are developing sacramental elements. And so I'd just be very interested to hear how you all are all grappling with that, because it seems to be a thing that I don't know, maybe in our time it's more natural for older people than younger people. I don't know, but I'm concerned about it. And as a person who's been trying again to be active in IRF as I was back when I was, Wayne and I were both much younger ministers, and IRF was more central to what the UUA was about. Its leadership were founding members practically of the flourishing of IRF. So be very interested in hearing your comments about that.
If I could jump in, the whole idea for me, coming in contact with the SGI at that time and accepting the challenge to do this practice every morning and every night for 100 days, that what I have found, people will say to me, well, how much time do you take out of your day to do your practice? I said, I don't take any time out of my day. My practice is like I have breakfast, I do my practice, I have lunch, I do my practice, I have dinner. It is my day. It's not anything that I take time out to do. It's who I am. And I always think of the little kids out in the playground and they've got the jungle gym that they're climbing around. My practice really is the framework, I could say, of who I am. And to share with you, after 12 years of my practice, my mom asked me to help her learn how to practice. And she was able to, I firmly believe, extend her life for 4 years before she passed away. And the last thing we did when I went over to see her that night after she'd moved to Sacramento, put all of her pills together, and then we sat down and we did the evening gongyo together, the evening meditation, hugged my mom. We said we loved each other, and she passed away a few hours later. So for me, my practice is real. And to me, it is sacramental. You know, it's like this is the sacrament that helps me be who I am. And my mom only wanted to learn because she said that over the years of my practice, she had seen so many changes in me that she wanted to learn for herself what it was all about. And fortunately, she lived down in Ocean City, New Jersey at that time. There was a group in Atlantic City that sort of adopted my mom. And someone would go over there and help her learn how to do the recitations and all that kind of stuff. But the devotional practice for me, I think, is essential. I'm getting ready to go back to Texas to visit my nephew and his family. And he's just gone through a real health scare. He's only 50 and came close to death. So he suddenly decided to go back to church. I need to have a sit-down talk with him. Because yes, it's important. To me, it's no longer important what practice you do, but that you have a practice, that you have a sacred space, that you have that sacramental space. So I'm going to keep reminding him that the kingdom of God is within. So always remember that don't expect answers to come out of the blue. It's going to be up to you to have that sacred space, to use prayer, meditation, whatever you want to call it. And I will tell anybody that it's less important to me that you be a Buddhist than it is that you have a spirituality that you use to settle yourself, to recognize your interconnection with that's why Buddhism and Unitarian Universalism are so integrated.
Right.
The whole idea, the interconnected web of life, that's Buddhism. You know, Indra's net is that interconnected life that we all share. Anyway, I'll get off my pulpit.
Not too far. Cooney or Wayne?
Well, you know, I think that Unitarian Universalism has always advocated for a strong social justice service and activism outreach as part of your spiritual practices and tried to build that connection. At different times in our history, we've been more ideological about that. We've had some very strong opinions that have been formed that seem to drive us towards the farther left side of the political spectrum, speaking in United States terms, and other times not so much. And I think we're in some ways our leadership is in Unitarian Universalism is farther left than maybe our members in our congregations are right now. They're and what I find in congregational life, in the congregation I'm in now, which is a congregation where I was the minister 20 plus years, 25 years ago, I'm back in the congregation as a member. What I find is a lot of people that are involved in various kinds of service, some of it political advocacy and lobbying for particular causes locally. Some of it just service to each other. This weekend, there's a memorial service being held in the church for a friend of mine who was not involved in the congregation, but her family was a generation ago. And the church members have rallied around to make sure that this is a important memorial occasion, given them the building to use. There's a woman who's creating an altar at the front of the church that honors the life of the woman who has died with some appropriate symbols of her spirituality. And it's not being minister-led, but the church, nevertheless, the members who are supporting these kinds of devotions don't worry about that. They are just glad to be of service, and they treat it as part of their ministry. So I experience my local congregation right now as very committed to community life that includes service. And so I see that resonating with the Risho Kosekai communities and the ways that I understand they function in local temples and communities. And I also see it in terms of the leadership commitment Risho Kosekai has had to witnessing for peace around the world as a primary focus. And you know, there is a devotional aspect to giving of yourself every week as part of your spiritual practice to others through ways that the church makes possible. And so I see that as more vital in Unitarian Universalism now than maybe some of the strong political positions that we see our national leaders taking. As much as I might agree with them, I'm not sure that they're as alive and central to our congregational life.
So Wayne, I put my email address in the chat.
Great.
Yeah, please email me, because I don't know your email address, you know.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Kuni,
So,
any closing comments for us? Anything you want to share, want to add?
oh,
You're,
what do you ask?
you're on the stage, Kuni.
If you want to be, you can.
Oh, no, I just want to hear this. Stefan, thank you so much for your wonderful story. And I missed the beginning of the part. And are you still engaged with SGI?
Yeah,
So after Mr. Ikeda died, I think SGI itself is a little bit try to change to
I
more.
have to say that the early times of SGI was Japanese leaders with experience,
Right.
a bunch of Westerners trying to imitate
I see.
without the practice. I can remember that there was something called strict guidance.
Okay.
And sometimes strict guidance meant sitting somebody down and giving them a come to Jesus conversation. But it was always done with the spirit of compassion to
Right.
help that person. While you had young American-born leaders who were simply yelling, I'm giving strict guidance, shut the hell up. No, that's not how you do it.
I see.
Just not how you do it. They were telling gay people to chant to become straight.
Oh,
They were giving guidance for gay men and lesbians to get married. And it was always done based on faith. Based on faith, follow the guidance. I saw more marriages destroyed.
yeah, I see.
And slowly, but I was one of the loudest voices all the way along in terms of this is not Buddhism. When I went to the culture center here in San Francisco, they had what they call the Daimoku chart.
I see.
And that's where people would phone in and say, this is how many Daimoku I chanted. And they'd mark it. They were chanting for the high priest to die.
Oh,
Yeah. And talk about being attached to anger.
I see.
And which is part of the reason I got kicked out. I I know a lot of the American leaders now in SGI, and I still have friends in SGI, you know,
Okay.
50 years later, simply because I always was honest. I always based what I had to say on the Dharma. And I'm happy to see that there are so many gay and lesbian leaders now who aren't being told they have to chant to be straight. That
Okay.
there are lots of young people growing up within SGI with the sense of social justice. And it's not just going out and dragging somebody to a meeting so they'll
That's
chant.
right. Yeah, yeah.
It's about actually doing something to support other people. So SGI now is very involved in interfaith work. And
Okay.
I'm so happy to see that it has evolved.
I think we've been blessed to have at least 3.5, me counted it as the half, would-be bodhisattvas. And thank you all very much for participating today. Stephen, you have anything you want to say in closing?
Yes, just allow the recording to finish processing. So once we leave, we'll all leave. You just leave your computer on and let it do its thing until it tells you, I'm done, and then you can go ahead and sign out.
Thank you,
That's
Stephen.
my
Okay.
closing statement.
The rest of the IRF board are really trying to bring John Young into the 21st century. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And Wayne,
thank
I'm
you
so
very much.
happy
Thank you
that
all.
you and
Wonderful to
Cooney.
have Wayne here today and Cooney
Thank
back.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
Pleasure to
very
meet
much.
you.
Okay, so we
Yeah, I'm
three,
glad to meet you
we-
all.
okay, we three, we're gonna go down there, we're gonna click leave. And
Okay,
then John is gonna go away and let it finish processing.
great.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Blessings.